if you're chasing new tools, new tactics, new trends and getting exhausted, just realize, like, stop and reflect on your own behavior. Is this something you've always done? Did you ever get the result that was promised or that you expected? James Schramko here, and welcome back to my podcast. This is episode 1101, and today I'm out on the road. I'm actually staying at a beach house. I'm in the Philippines surfing. Some really nice waves. I was out this morning. It's a Monday morning, and I was out there with just 4 other people in tropical warm water, and it really is the perfect metaphor for how things are going in business and life for me. I had such a strong reaction to episode 1100. I wanted to just continue on some themes, and I thought it would be good to bring in a couple of ideas that I've been talking about with clients recently, and also we covered at my team meeting. And if you want a separate episode on what sort of things we talk about at my team meeting, we could probably put something together there. My team have been together for between 12 and 15 years, and we have some great conversations. They were actually up here in the same region, staying nearby, and we all had plenty of meals and discussions. But business is good, and I want to talk about that because there's been so many changes in the world. I mean, we had a massive election. We had COVID a few years back. We have had some very strange pressures going on there. Like, there's little wars breaking out between certain countries, and I'm sure if you're in those countries it would seem like a massive thing, but as an outsider we're seeing quite a lot of change. But then of course it's hard to ignore AI and what's going on with the industry. I've even seen people publish manifestos saying they're getting out of the industry's become bad, but I would suggest that really they're just looking in a mirror. If you lack integrity or you're not a good marketer, then you're going to reflect that in whatever you do. That'll actually be something that goes with you. Your values stay with you. So changing industries may not be the answer. For me, when I was in the previous industry, that I was in the automotive industry, I was very good at it, and I actually enjoyed it until the last part where it's starting to get a little bit stressful. But it will reflect your inner values and your core beliefs. But I was very excited about the online space, the websites, and I'd have to say I'm as excited about where things are going with AI and the changes in the marketplace as I was when the internet came. This is good for people like you and me. I've heard someone describe the K-shaped economy, where 80% of what you know will be useless because we can all look it up or have AI generate it, but 20% of it is useful. And Sam Woods really reiterated that as a guy who I did a previous episode with not that long ago, and he said we won't be replaced for things like taste, curation, wisdom, actual life experience. And until AI is able to experience my entire life firsthand, like point of view, as the same way that I have, it can't possibly replicate the same way that I'm looking at things just yet. So if you're a bit overwhelmed, if you've seen a lot of change and you're not sure what to do, then this episode's for you. And I don't know if the sound quality is going to be as good as it could be, but I'm just using a lav mic here, and I'm filming on a laptop perched on top of an esky, or a cooler box as you probably call it in the United States, and I'm in the spare bedroom here. So let's go. The strategy that has worked best for me is simplification. And that was the theme that came out from my team meeting. We have simplified every part of my life, but also my business. We've been leveraging existing assets that have been growing. My lower tier membership, Connect, has seen exponential growth lately. It was always there, but I didn't sell it for the last year. But when we turned it on and we unleashed some of the AI tools onto it, we actually created the campaigns, we created the landing page, the training, VSL's video sales letter, by the way. So it's a mashup of education and selling. And we did all the follow-up emails and started with that from the tool set, and then we built the campaign, and then we started running ads to it. Our friend Chris Benetti turned on some ads. He's the guy who's been running my book ads, and we switched across some of our ad budget from the books across to this new campaign. And what it's seen is a brand new cohort I hate that word, but it's a bunch of new people arrived in the Connect membership. And they are fantastic people. They're having great conversations, starting progress journals. They attended the live monthly training, which we record, and that's in the membership now. And I can see these renewals going from the $10 for 10-day trial through to $59 per month. Another thing that I simplified is I reset the price for that membership to $59 for all members. No matter how long they've been there, it's $59 a month. The other fascinating thing that I've seen over the many years that I've run a membership, which is 15 years now, is a good chunk of people came back. About a third of the people coming into the membership were previous clients, and that's a consistent theme I've seen. And the lesson there is to have very strong bridges for people to leave and come back on. Don't burn people if they want to leave. Understand that coaching can be seasonal, or that people have other things going on in their life other than you. And don't get too precious about it. And I don't mind if someone leaves and comes back. They need something, I can provide it, I feel valued, they are getting a great return on investment. So let's have a look at how we don't just survive, but how we thrive in 2025. As it turns out, I'm recording this video in December 2024. I know it'll get dated, but I think in the previous years when I've gone to the Philippines for a few months, I've batch recorded content before I left, and I didn't turn on my podcasting until February. But this year's different. I'm going to create episodes on demand as we need them. So there may be a gap between the episodes, maybe longer than a week, and that's okay if it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But what you will get is you'll get a fresh response to the previous episode and things that are on my mind right now. So I'm going to commit to making better content, even if it means I'm not in my studio. I don't have my bookshelf behind me. I don't have the fantastic sound deck or camera, but this content is relevant. So the world is moving faster than ever with AI. We've gone from last year where it is postgraduate level to this year where it's professor level to next year. 2025 is the year that it will get close to 200% of a human. And we don't know what happens there. I've seen videos where they're talking about the bumper rails and how they need to create protocols for safety to manage this properly. But it's kind of exciting as well. And maybe we'll make leaps and bounds that we can't even comprehend in terms of medical and science and innovations. Perhaps we'll get to a scenario where a lot of things are being done. Maybe they'll have human-shaped robot type things within 10 years of now who can paint and build and cook and stuff. I don't know, that sounds a bit utopian or even dystopian. But I tell you what, when you hop on a plane and you come to another country where it's perhaps a few years behind the Western society, you see that it's going to be a long time until that stuff comes to some countries where they're only now just tapping cards for payments in some places in the Philippines, and things like going to the shops and checkouts and stuff are still very much 15 plus years ago. So a lot of entrepreneurs are really drowning in complexity. If you're too prone to getting scooped up by all the internet bros, then you might be confused into thinking it's all about ads and scaling and setters and closers and campaigns and schools and groups and whatever the latest bright shiny object is. Just take a step back from that. It's not about working 7 days a week. It's not about doing the most you can possibly do and being the most efficient and productive as possible. I saw a funny post from a friend of mine, a deal the other day, and he says he points his car out so that he can have a quick getaway to save time on the exit. But it made me think, like, that is like really in the very single digit percentages of how you're going to make a change in life. Like, I'm doing everything slowly. Today I rode my bicycle with a surfboard rack very slowly to the surf. And then I walked along the beach. I surfed in the waves with just 3 or 4 other people. Then I walked back along the beach, and then I rode my bike back, and I cooked an omelette for breakfast and had a coffee and then a protein shake. And it's now lunchtime, and I thought, you know what? It's time to record a little podcast for my crew. And that's probably the main thing I'm going to achieve today on the Monday, is I'm going to check in with my team and I'm going to make a podcast. That'll be it for the whole day. and it's okay. You can drive a 7 business with less. That's my point. So as fast as everything seems and as crazy and noisy as entrepreneurs are, don't drown. Just do less, but do better. And the reason I was a little bit slower today is yesterday when I was out in some big waves, I lost my leg rope. It snapped. And there was about 7 to 10 minutes of potential for panic, where I realized I'm out the back in big waves at a whitewash with no surfboard. There's no jet ski here. There's no surf rescue crew. There's probably no helicopters. It was just up to me to be calm and to make my way back to shore. But that's what we have to do when things feel intense, when you do feel like you're drowning. You have to just let go a bit, take some breath, and so do that. So let's talk about the first part, simplification and market adaptation. If you're chasing new tools, new tactics, new trends, and getting exhausted, just realize, stop and reflect on your own behavior. Is this something you've always done? Did you ever get the result that was promised or that you expected? Because if you didn't, maybe it's time to pull back a bit. I always, when I'm coaching people or mentoring them, I have a look and reflect on what went well. What worked for you before? Where did you get your customers from? Who were the best customers? What lessons did you learn from past failures that you would like to not repeat in the future? And of course, the best people to learn from when it comes to failures is other people's failures. So being observant, observing other people making a mistake and not having to do it yourself is really a skill. So if you feel like you're always putting out fires, then I think simplification is your friend. This is the pathway to freedom. It was like that for me. When I was a general manager, I had 70 people to be responsible for across multiple physical premises. We had tens of millions of dollars worth of stock. It was a lot of pressure from a lot of people, and it was chaos. I built systems and structure to work my way out of being in the cog and stuck, getting ground out, and I managed it really well. By the time I finished my role as a general manager, after about 4.5 years, I'd made my role almost redundant, which was also, ironically, my threat and also the catalyst for me to go online. When I went online, I did go balls to the wall. I just pedaled hard. I wanted to make sure I never have to have a job again. And I made good money and I worked really hard. And it was only 7 or 8 years into it that I started to peel back some weekends and then peel back some weekdays. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years or so. And especially the last 3 or 4, got it down to a consistent 10 to 15 hours a week. And this is the part where I say that may not be your goal. It's okay. It doesn't matter what Hormozi does or Vaynerchuk or Cardone, right? These are all the poster guys for hustle and grind. And that's fine for them. And I'm saying for me, it's pretty boring and a bit tiring. I'm in my 50s. I don't want to be doing that bullshit. I want to surf and drink coffee and cook omelets and make a decent piece of content every now and then, have a chat to my team and just work with less people, but do really good work with them, have some fantastic partners. So whatever stage you're at, focus on optimizing that stage. And if you're in your 20s and whatever, then it's more than likely you want to just go for it. And I get it. That was me. It's all right. But don't put out fires. Don't spend your time firefighting. Don't keep switching on new things until you master at least one thing, because that's where people get stuck. Okay. And the reality is, over all the time I've been doing this 80-20 keeps coming true. So much of what you thought was important is not important, to the extent where it's not just 80-20, it's 60-4-4. 2/3 of your outcomes are probably coming from about 4 or 5% of the things you're doing. And I have a friend online called Matt Gill, and he posted a thing about the results that he got from all of the webinars that people promoted for him. And he realized that about 80% of the results, or 79% of the results came from about 20% of the people. And I said, does it extrapolate on itself? Does it go 60-4-4? And he said, hang on a minute, I'll be the smart one here, right? And I said, no, I'm serious. And he went and looked at it and came back and he goes, you know what? It's about 7 or 8% of the people generated almost 2/3 of the results. So it actually did pan out. So see if that can apply to you. Look at your product line, look at your product suite, look at your clients, look at your team. You're going to find areas of waste that you can just stop. And so if you're building simplification, that's the solid ground. So just think, where's the sand and where's the bedrock? Just focus on the bedrock and let go of the sand. The next phase is leveraging AI for business growth. It's not just a buzzword anymore, and it's not a hype. Like the beginning of this year, I knew it was there. I'd been talking about it for 10 years. I wasn't really that deep into it. My team have tried a whole bunch of tools over the last few years. I've definitely had some good use cases, from writing speeches to designing a house to give to an architect. Like, a very powerful tool. But I believe now it is a very important tool for your team. It's a tool to reclaim your time, because it can do things that used to take me time. Like, I could take the last 6 hours of coaching calls, like really intensive calls, 6 hours worth, right? There's several calls in there. I can take all the notes that the AI tool in Zoom sent me via email, put it into GPT and ask it for a summary and a mashup of the things that I've been talking about. And before you know it, you've got a podcast outline. Episode 1101 is a mashup from all of the last conversations I've had with my team and my clients. Episode 1100, FYI, was a mashup of my best performing social posts. And those posts came from my source content, which were put into a GPT and notebook and asked for insights and structure. So what you're seeing is how you can use a tool to create better content. And I'm still here personally live delivering this. I know there are tools that could take my script and take a picture of me and make it look like me, but I'm actually doing this myself, because I think it's important to augment and not to replace. It's not a case of turn on the GPT and go sip your pina coladas. I feel like it's an e-bike versus a bike. That's it. The AI is an e-bike for your whole team. Give them all an e-bike instead of a bike. Say, hey, I'm going to upgrade you to an e-bike. Use the tools, lean into it. You don't need people to do stuff by hand just because it's cruel. Give them the tools. If I had to review 6 hours of my own notes before, it would take me half a day to sit down and go through and look for the themes and trends. And I might not have an all-encompassing summary of it, but the tool's really good at that, so use it for that. It's not here to replace you right now. Sure, you won't be hiring as many people, I expect. You won't need to outsource and contract some things. For sure, it's replacing some other people, but it's here to support you. And I think if you just treat it like a human assistant, that's how you get the best results from it. So I've got a client at the moment, and I'm teaching him how to build an engine to put all of his copywriting materials in there. He's a copywriter. And he said, what's the best approach? I said, tell it what you would tell a human apprentice. Say, look, here's what we do as a business. Here are the clients we serve. Here's all the material, the libraries, the frameworks that we use. Here are the last 50 campaigns that went really well. Now I want you to just go and study it and learn it. Now AI is going to do that instantly. And say, now we're going to start working on our first project. Let's do this together. So I want you to whip up a such and such. It does it. Say, okay, that's pretty good, but I would want you to change here and there. If you have this human-like conversation with it, it will get powerful very quickly. And that's what I've done with my engines. I've got engines that help me build YouTube video scripts, which I'm getting 50,000 views a month on my surf YouTube channel from the tool that generates the scripts that I just then go and record in my garage. It's very, very good, because before I would have had to spend a lot of time on it. It's the e-bike. So imagine all the mundane stuff that you used to have to do, the dredging, sort of looking through things, proposals, insights, gleaning insights from your own stuff, summaries and stuff. That's all the power of AI. I mean, just this morning, before I came to record this podcast, I saw a friend of mine did a really good Facebook post that had a good framework and working example that others could use. So I went to GPT, I pasted the whole post and I said, apply this to my partner's business and give a checklist of insights that could be used for him to grow his business. And it just processed the post, turned it into insights, and then I was able to hand it over. And it's just a powerful tool, but you just got to remember to use it. If you've got an e-bike but you park it in the garage, it's not, do you have an e-bike? Right? So use the tool. I would suggest you roll up your sleeves and get dirty with the tools on a regular basis. I'm using it every day. You can talk to it. You can actually talk to your phone and it can talk back. You can choose a nice voice. and you can have conversations with it. So train your AI with existing materials. That's really step one. There's a couple of settings that I'd suggest you do. Setting number one is don't let it send that off for training the main system if you've got proprietary information. And step two is allow it to iterate on itself. So there's two settings in GPT that you need to adjust for that. And while I'm on this, there's a whole bunch of pretend GPT style tools that are kind of passing off, in my opinion, pretending to be GPT that are on the marketplace. Some of them make up to $6 million a year just putting a glove over GPT and pretending to be GPT. They have an even very similar logo. If you want to use GPT, please go to the official website at OpenAI and get the actual app. And don't use one of those add-ons because I feel like you'll be missing features. And as they roll out new power, you want it to reflect back into the previous thing. And I don't know what these scrapers are doing or these gloves on top of GPT, if they're passing that on or not. But I know they're not for some, because some of my clients aren't able to do the things that I'm able to do. Like one of them wasn't able to go and look up a website, which is terrible. Step two is start automating repetitive tasks. So anything you would have done manually, lean on the tools. And then step three is be creative with it. Use it for ways you haven't thought of before. So put some time into innovation. And if you're not sure, ask it. Someone sent me over a draft outline of their plan of attack for incorporating AI into their business, and they asked me for my opinion. And I said, well, why don't you load that to AI and say, here's my overview of how to approach AI. And the other thing that's very, very, very powerful, and a lot of people are not aware of this, is it can read pictures particularly well. I went up to my bookshelf, took a picture of my bookshelf and asked it to list the books and give a summary of each book, and it did it off the spine. I took a picture of a cake in a fancy patisserie the other day and asked it to describe the picture, and it described every single layer of that cake and exactly how it was made, and it was amazing. And so if you had copywriting frameworks, old pictures of it, or you screenshot something, feed it and it will interpret it from the picture. So that's how you can use it. Now, one of the other great uses, that this is sort of a creative use, this is for creators. I was worried about running ads on Facebook, and I was worried about making YouTube videos for one reason, and that is because deep down, sometimes I still care what other people think. And I know I'm working very hard on not worrying too much about what other people think. But occasionally if someone says something mean, it could kind of stab you a bit. Like you've spent hours paddling around with a GoPro in your mouth or filming in your garage, putting up this content, and someone says, this is the worst channel ever. A friend of mine, Mark Joyner, had a course called Linguistic Jiu-Jitsu, and he put it inside his Simpleology. He's a lovely guy, very smart, and he let me have access to this course. And from when I got the course, I took notes. I went through every video, I took notes. And it helped me prepare for trolls better. And now I'm not so worried about it, which means that I can create. But what I did is I took my notes, I put it into the machine, and I said, let's use this as training material for when people say nasty things. So in the very rare occasion where someone says something nasty, I go to the machine and ask it, how do we answer this? And it gives me a really well thought out, structured, polite, but standing my ground, emotionally core response. And it's been brilliant. It means that I'm happy to create. So if you're watching this or listening to this and you're an introvert and you're concerned about hateful trolls and that's what's stopping you create, then do something like that. Go and get Mark Joyner's Linguistic Jiu-Jitsu course and build an engine that helps you respond. Maybe Mark's listening to this and he would create a chatbot or something off it. I think that would be a great idea. But that little tool is great. So I've got my video creator engine, I've got my anti-troll engine, I've got my James's second brain engine. Now, a lot of people, this is a big deal. A lot of people are saying you should clone yourself, you should put a chatbot on your website or whatever. Like, no, I'm not putting my engine of me on my website. And here's why. Firstly, it hasn't got the full package. It doesn't have all my experiences and everything in there because that would require an immense amount of training. So if it were to get to that point, it's not there yet. Secondly, I think it's good to have a black box of proprietary intellectual property. That's what I'm using for assisting with my mentoring and coaching in the background with clients' permission. I'll ask them if they want me to run it through my engine and generate out Or their deliverables. Do they want landing pages, VSLs, follow-up emails and ads that replicate the campaign that's worked well for me? If they say yes, then I just make it for them. And it's got to the point where it's very good. I still hand polish the outputs. This is a very important point. Train it with your source material, generate the best possible outcomes you can through creative prompting, and then still hand tune it, and also disclose when you use it. I think they're the protocols that will be useful for you. Next up is effective pricing strategies. I'm getting this one a fair bit, and especially I triggered that when I repriced my membership. If your pricing feels misaligned, now is the time to fix it, because we are getting into a market where there's competition, commoditization, a massive amount of shift. Small tweaks can make a difference. If you are pricing something, try and think, would this be appropriate in 3 years from now? That's where I try and set my price. So I've set my new membership price not on today, because I lost money repricing all the people I've already got. I lost quite a lot of money per month recurring to do that. But I'm looking at 3 years now in advance, when I've got a few hundred more members at a lower price point that's easily sustainable, taking into account inflation and exchange rates and all the rest of it. The fact is, I know a lot of my clients are spending an enormous amount of their income just on housing, accommodation, property, that sort of stuff. Like, the money comes in and then goes out again. So set your pricing for 3 years from now. To take the fear out of pricing, try small groups and explain to people why you're doing it and how it works in their favor. If you're raising your prices, and you get this advice a lot from coaches, it can often make sense. Almost everybody undercharges, right? And for my mentorship, yes, it's still a fair price point. At the time of publishing this, it's $1,500, but I reserve the right to change that at any time. It could be $2,000 or $3,000 potentially in the future, because I've got a full deck of clients and I'm doing really good work with them. I actually feel like I'm getting the very best results I've ever got for anybody ever now, because I'm a master of a changing landscape. Maybe that's because I surf and the waves are never the same one day to the next. Unless you go to a wave pool, they are different. And your clients, they will respect you more and stay longer if you get the right price point. You don't want the price resentment, you don't want to undervalue yourself, because people will abuse that as well. So it's also the key to probably one of the most important elements that nobody really talks about, and that's recurring revenue retention. If you can keep a member, you're not scrapping about looking for traffic or conversions. If all most people did was look after the people they've already got as best they possibly could, then the whole traffic and conversion industry would fade. And actually, I'd argue some of it is fading. I think they're stopping doing conferences. I think some of those people who set it up have gone into different ventures. The bright, shiny object of traffic and conversion is fading. Recurring is always where it's been at for me. It's just beautiful. And looking after people is how you get it, which is fine by me. So shifting from one-time projects to recurring revenue is what saved my business. And it is predictable, scalable. It gives you peace of mind. I can continue to hire my team and give them safety and comfort knowing that we have that recurring income coming. I teach 3 different ways of doing it. There's the retainer way for services, recurring relationships. If they can't do a retainer, then they can have recurring relationships. And that's where people, like when I was selling cars, I had 40% of my business in the first year or 2 was repeat and referral business, because I'd maintain that relationship and then I'd help them upgrade to the next car. The second way is subscription memberships and softwares. And the third way is partnerships and royalty revenue share deals. Those things are magic. That's a powerhouse. I don't think there's many people teaching that. I teach that. If you want to learn that, you can join my program, any of them, Connect or Mentor, or private coaching if you want to pay more. I'm available just one-on-one, but you have to pay more. It's about $3,000 a month. I'm there. And you can have just a month if you want. I'll do just a month. I don't need a big long-term contract, because I'm playing a different game to everybody else. I'm not trying to hook you in for the next 5 years with all the risk on you. Let's share the risk. So I'll risk a month of my life for the fee, and you'll risk 1 month of fee to see if we can get a result. So when you implement this retention engine, it will just bring the churn. Like if you're churning at 10, 15, 20%, you don't have a recurring program, you have a part payment program. So I would like to see that under 5%, ideally 2%, and best would be like 1%. That would be an amazing business. Retention is more profitable than just about anything else because you already have the customer, you don't have an acquisition cost. They stay for years, they're fun to work with. It gives you an endless supply of content creation ideas, and your very best content can just be taken from your members. This episode came from my private mentor calls that I've taken AI notes from and put back into talking topics, and I think you'll agree it's very relevant to my prospects. So your best content can come from your membership or your clients. A single post could become a podcast, a blog, or a video series. So I'm seeing 20-year-olds talk about this idea of taking a pillar piece of content for a month and then breaking it into newsletters and podcasts and YouTube videos. And hey, we've been doing that the whole time. That's been there forever. Content syndication. It's a beautiful thing, but you've got to start with the best, not voluminous noise. It has to be really good stuff. So keep it very simple. Think about what resonates with your perfect client and start from that. Post consistently, but it doesn't have to be like at 2 o'clock on a Friday. I think that's a bit of a myth. And the whole, send emails at this particular time. No, make content when you've got good content, when you've got something to talk about. It's like I said in this episode, I'm going to send you an episode when there's something to talk about. Make it raw, make it genuine. It always wins over polished, right? I'm sitting in a spare bedroom in a beach hut in the Philippines today. I'm not in a studio, but I want this raw, genuine content to go out. And on that topic, let's talk about work-life balance. You want to run a business that works by itself to some extent without sacrificing what matters the most. My fear is not the childless people who work 7 days a week, that's fine. But the people with families who bullshit themselves that they're doing this for their family, but they never actually see the family. Wake up. Give yourself a smack to the head, because that's a bullshit excuse. You're actually not going to see your kids. Work on less things, but do better. Get better clients. Skill yourself up. Get some help and bring in the income so that you can actually tuck your kids in and read them a bedtime story. And I've watched my daughter over the last year go from just learning to read and write to being a prolific reader and writer. And I've read stories to her every single night in bed. That's what being a great parent's about, but that's important to me. I actually think she's the most valuable and important thing I've spent the last 5 years on that will have a long-term benefit. So play the long game, but play it in the right place. So it's not about doing absolutely everything and more. And stop lying to yourself. If you've got time for your family and your hobbies, you'll be a better person. I've mentioned this a few times in my podcast before, but I'm in my 50s and I'm more interested in health than I've ever been. It saved my life yesterday for sure, while I was out in the middle of the ocean and I had to swim back to shore by myself with no rescue team. Being fit, being healthy, good nutrition, supplements, going to the gym, doing that exercise. I mean, I've been racking up 15 to 17,000 steps a day on holidays here because it's just a healthy lifestyle. That's what living's about. And your work will benefit from that. You're going to glow into your work. You're going to love your work. You're going to be charged up and vital. Next up is a couple of predictions and opportunities for 2025. Predictions are a mixed bag. Like, everyone thinks they know what the price of Bitcoin is and why. I don't think they do, probably. So I'm a bit hesitant to make predictions, but I am definitely good at finding opportunities. I've always somehow managed to place myself in my entire career in the right place at the right time. In the early 90s, when there was a recession, I was in debt collection. As the market recovered, I went through to credit provision and then into selling of luxury items. And then as it crashed again, 2008, I went online because I thought the internet would be a good place to be. And it is. And I'm saying I think AI is something you should know about because it's going to decimate the market. It will disrupt in ways you can't possibly imagine. I can't imagine. I'm spending time thinking about how it will disrupt, and I'm moving towards it. But absolutely, stage one is get deep with the tools and get dirty with them and share them with your team. I've got 5 brains thinking on the AI tools right now. Everyone in my team is empowered to play with AI on a daily basis. In fact, because they're editing my YouTube videos and my podcasts, I've told them they should watch Netflix or Amazon Prime or YouTube videos as part of their work, because we need to be on top of this. They should try new things, they should get into the tools and try different ways. And they came up with a brilliant idea at our team meeting. They said, why don't you take your podcast outline and run it through the YouTube engine, because it does things like open loops, it has hooks, and we tried it and it came out beautifully. And I'm using some of that structure for today's podcast. Paint yourself as leading the charge within your business. Like, I've challenged my team, can you outpace me with your AI knowledge? Like, let's see how you go. But at the same time, being humble and grounded. So they know it's a cheeky challenge, right? I would happily have them outpace me and bring me along on their e-bike, right? Because it's hard work always having the ideas, right? But just take one bold step today. Just simplify something. Maybe you just had enough of that garage you can't even walk through right now. Just open it up and drive a whole truckload of stuff to the charity. I love taking things I don't want to the charity place, because I know they're going to sell it and the money will go somewhere that it's useful. I also don't want to put low value things on Marketplace and have people cruising through my house and trying to arrange for someone to come, or 27 people asking, is it still available? And you say yes, and then there's grasshoppers, right? So donating is my power move for releasing something back into the world in a way that creates value for someone else. So that might be physical simplification. Have less stuff. But the digital version of that is less products, less domains. If there's some bad performers in your team or whatever, and you have a performance management process where they're no longer with you, don't replace them. Just let everyone else power up their e-bikes and fill the gap. So in closing, right, I know it's been a sort of a freewheeling episode, but there has been some structure to it. This message today, 1101, is about simplifying, about leveraging the good things that are already working for you or have worked for you in the past, about thriving next year, because 2025, in terms of the prediction and where it's going, it's really about getting comfortable with the tools and being okay with change. There will be probably more change in 2025, and the USA is changing leadership, and that has to be a significant thing. It will change. It's already surged Bitcoin past $100,000, for example. It will change things. And you know that saying, when the USA catches a cold, the rest of the world sneezes. So we're seeing a change in government. We're seeing a change in technology. I actually think a lot of the online marketers, the OGs or whatever, a lot of them are just exhausted, worn out, and don't know what to do now, because the old shit they were doing doesn't work anymore. All the BSO, the bright shiny objects, all the shovels selling to gold diggers, I think they've exhausted their market. And it's both fascinating and it's time. And I still remember when I came online, 2005 or 6, properly to try and build a website. It used to anger me, the arrogance and the forcefulness and the manipulation of the OG online marketers, push selling with their screaming red headlines. There was no social media to balance it out. There was no way to alert people. I mean, there was one guy for a while there who caused a bit of a bad wave, called the Salty Droid. And I kind of liked that someone stood up against some of the things that were going on, because they were douchebags, a lot of them. And some of them were well-meaning, but they just don't have values or ethics. So I think 2025, there is also an entire new generation of marketers who've come through. And just watch out for this. If you're one of the younger generation marketers and you're buying courses and just cut and pasting it, man, I get the same emails all day, every day, literally the same words. And they're not going to be effective. You have to find your personality. So as much as the tools can modify and leverage things, as much as they can be the e-bike, this is why I like this e-bike metaphor, and I've come up with this myself. I haven't found this anywhere else. I'm still steering and I'm still pedaling. I'm still using the brakes. The GPT or the other AI tools, they're just assisting my pedaling. And that means I can go further for longer and it's more enjoyable than having to do the old manual way. So e-bike up, get your team empowered, cut non-performing products, cut non-performing customers, cut non-performing team members. And just on that, if you were to go back 10 years, I had about 1,000 customers. We had hundreds of customers. We had 500 plus members in my forum. We had hundreds and hundreds, 500 members of my SEO products and website development and all that stuff. Some mentoring clients. Now I think we have less than 100 people that we have to look after, a little team of 5. We've got partners, mentor clients, 2 private clients, and we have a very brand new, growing, exciting vibe in the Connect level, which is just $59 a month. Maybe if you're listening to this episode and you'd like to chat to me on a daily basis in a community like that, check it out. It's $10 for 10 days. You can access it from my products page on jamesschramko.com. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Always looking for feedback. If you want to hit reply, you've listened to this episode, hit reply to the emails, say it was good, bad, whatever. I actually got the most response to episode 1100 than I've had for a year or two. That's why I wanted to do this episode. If you think I'm on track, let me know. I'll do more just like this. If you want something different, you've got a special request, by all means, you know what to do. See you on the next one.
This is James Schramko.